In this video, we're going to perform the assembly and installation of a premium steel Westcan shelving unit. It doesn't matter what length of the shelving unit that you're using, the installation and assembly is exactly the same. I'm going to start off by taking it out of the package, and I'm going to use a set of needle nose pliers to pull the staples. Now that I have the package open, I'm going to take all the parts out of the box. Now that I've opened up the box and taken all the components out, I'm going to open up the hardware kit. I'm going to take out the instructions. And on the front of it, it's going to give me the part numbers that are in the box with the quantities. I'm going to validate that I have all the pieces. Now that I've validated that I have all my components, the next step is to pull the protective PVC coating off of both sides. Now that we pulled the PVC, the next step is to install the U-nut clips. The U-nut clips come in a bag in the hardware. There's 4 nuts, 4 bolts, and 4 U-nut clips in each bag. The U-nut clip, the nut side of it, goes on the inside of the shelving unit. And when it goes on, you will actually feel and hear it snap into the hole. Next step, we're going to assemble the shelving unit. What you're going to do, you're going to use a 14-inch shelf to get started, and we're going to do this right on the floor. Make sure it's a nice clean floor. If it's not a nice clean floor, make sure you have a blanket down or you have some cardboard down to protect it. When we install this, you want to make sure that where the narrow shelf goes is on the top and the lips of the shelf are facing up so that you don't get them installed upside down. We're going to set that one there. We're going to put the second shelf, 14-inch shelf, into the panel. And now you'll notice that there's square holes and round holes. Where the square holes are is the location for the shelves. These shelves are adjustable in 1-inch increments. You can adjust them wherever you want. Be sure that when you're thinking of adjusting the bottom shelf into a different location, in a GMC Chevrolet van, when you lower this down, you run into the wheel well if it's over top the wheel well. So just make sure if it's over top the wheel well, that this stays in this location. We're going to install the 10.5-inch top shelf. Again, on the top, on the back side, there's only one hole. On the front side, there's a few holes. Always go into the square hole. That is the shelf location. Now that we've started the bolts in the 3 shelving units, we're going to snug them up. Now that we've snugged up those bolts, we're going to take this shelving unit and we're going to flip it over. Now that we installed the 3 shelves and snugged up the bolts, we're going to install the last piece, which is the retainer lip. The retainer lip U-nut clips and bolts come in the bag with the hardware kit. It goes on the bottom of the shelving unit. This is to protect any product that's put underneath the shelving unit to stay in place and not roll into the walk area as a tripping hazard. Now that we have installed the retainer lip with a small square, we're going to check the squareness of the shelving unit and It's a matter of putting it underneath that lip, flat against the end panel, checking for squareness. You can move this back and forth and get it square. And now we're going to tighten all the bolts. Next, we're going to talk about the installation of the upper mounting brackets. The upper mounting brackets in the instruction says that we're going to use our 2 bolts. We're going to use the front slotted hole for a GM van, and we're going to use the top 1/4 inch hole for the GM van. Keep in mind that these brackets are inboard, or these brackets can be outboard. And the reason I'm talking about that is because of the holes in the mounting rib that you're going to mount to. If you have a void where you're going to put your bolt in the mounting rib on the van, then you can turn and use the bracket from the other side to stay away from the void in the mounting bracket. The other thing to keep in mind is that when we put 2 shelving units together, we can share a single bracket on top, so we only have 1 bracket. The brackets should be installed after the shelving unit set into the van for 2 reasons. One, it's not so tall, it's easier to get into the van. The other reason is you're not sure whether you're going to use the bracket inbound or outbound, depending on the application that you're using. When we're doing the installation on the driver's side of this van, because of the trim level, depending on whether it has barn doors or sliding doors, but you'll find that there's different trim levels in these vans. In this case, this piece of trim, we're going to remove it because it's in the way of mounting our upper brackets. Now we're going to install a 194-190-13 package. Located in the instructions for the partition is the measurements and the requirements of where the shelving goes for those packages. On this package, it says that I need to have 5 inches from the partition to the shelving unit, which I've measured on the floor with a white marker. We've set in our 48-inch shelving unit on the front, 59.5-inch shelving unit on the rear. We've mounted our upper mounting brackets, and we've sheared this one. A little trick that I'm going to tell you is to take a pair of vice grips and loosely put it through the slotted rib and connect it to the shelf just to hold the top in place on the front one and the rear while we're doing the installation. What that allows us to do is to be able to take and put our level on it, because we have our mounting brackets mated. We know that's exactly where the shelf goes from the distance from the wall to the van. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a little level on it, and we're going to pull this shelving unit in or out to square the bottom. And once I've got that square, I'm going to take my white marker and I'm going to mark these holes. Because we're sharing the upper shelf bracket, you're going to take the extra hardware and through the accessory holes in the end panels, you're going to put a bolt on the top and a bolt on the bottom. That just keeps these mated perfectly. Now that we've marked all the holes for the bottom anchors, we're going to take a black bolt marker and we're going to mark the hole location that we're going to drill for the top mounting bracket. And there's 3 locations, and we're going to pick the best one because we're only installing one. Keep in mind when you're doing this and you're mounting these brackets, that if you happen to have a bracket that there's a big void and it makes it awkward to find a hole, take the bracket and switch it with another one so that you're away from the void. Now that we've marked all the holes and we're ready to core out the mat of the van so that we can put in the nutserts and the spacers, what we use is a 1-inch Milwaukee hole saw. And the reason I like Milwaukee is because it has a large hole on the side of it. A little trick that I did was I ground off almost the teeth all the way because I do not want to cut into the body of the van. I just want to cut the mat out. And I've sharpened it all the way around. And this gives me more of a knife cut than it gives me a drill cut and makes it a lot easier to get the pieces out, which I'll show you. Now that I've drilled out the 1-inch hole for the matting, I'm going to remove that matting. Something that you want to make sure you don't do is just keep drilling and filling this up full of matting, because you'll have a hard time getting it all out. Once I push that out so I can reach it, I'll grab a hold of it with my needle nose pliers. And I'll pull it out and drill my next hole. Now that we've cored out the mat with a 1-inch hole saw, the pilot hole on that was 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to take that pilot hole, I'm going to drill it to 3/8 of an inch with my 3/8 drill bit and drill stop. Now that I've installed the nut certs, I'm going to put the 1/2-inch spacers in the hole. And I'm doing this because I'm installing this where there's a rubber mat and we have a counter bore. Keep in mind, if you're doing a van that does not have a rubber mat, you do not require these spacers because you will not be coring any holes. Next, we're going to drill out the top mounting bracket holes that we marked with a black felt marker using a drill stop. Now that I've drilled up the holes to 3/8 of an inch, I'm now going to install the 1/4 inch by 3/8 nut certs using an install tool that comes in every hardware kit. The bolt, the washer, the tool with the serrated edge on the bottom, and the insert nut. I'm going to install that into the hole. Push it down tight, hang on to it with a 9/16 wrench, and tighten it up. Back out the bolt. Installed securely. If you find when you're drilling through the floor that you can't go deep enough, what happens is, depending on your location, you can run into a cross member on the van. What I want you to do is to adjust your drill bit stop. You're going to adjust your drill bit stop the length of the nut cert. Make sure it's sitting on land and tighten it up. Now that we have the shelving set into place, we're going to start by putting in the anchor bolts. 1/4 inch bolt, lock washer, flat washer, and we're just going to loosely install them. Once we have all the top bolts loosely installed, we're now going to loosely install the bottom bolts. The last shelving unit of this install is a 59.5-inch shelving unit on the passenger side. In the instructions, it says to measure from the partition to the shelving unit. I'm going to mark that out on the floor with a white marker.